Hello, everyone. It's Nigel Seeley here for Betting Weekly Game Bet Match, the number one tennis betting podcast brought to you in association with Bet Rivers, your hometown sportsbook. We're on the Asian swing, and I'm delighted to say joining me to discuss the matches for Friday. This is Thursday, kind of a strange time, but because of the Asians, tournament starting on Tuesday over in Asia, it's a different sort of format here. And I'd like to say joining me is our senior ATP Tour handicapper, Sean Calvert. Now, Sean, before we go into tomorrow's action, we didn't have a great first round, did we? Wasn't a good three picks, not really good, very close. Bergs went to the final set. Vukic went to the final set. Do you think that's more to do with a bit of bad luck, or do you think it's the conditions that we thought potentially would be the way they are may not be necessarily how we thought they would go?
I'd take all those three bets again, to be honest with you. I don't think they were bad plays at all. I think there was definite value on Vukic at that price. He just couldn't keep his best level up. He took the first set. He just couldn't keep his level up for the next two sets. Possibly a bit of fatigue, setting in there. He's probably played quite a bit this summer. Bergs we were unlucky with as well. He got injured. I don't know whether you saw the match.
I bet him. I watched him. I thought after set two, we went very heavy favourite, and I thought, well, we're going to win this. It was minus 110, I think, at one stage.
Yeah, and he couldn't hit a backhand, could he? If you noticed in that last set and the set and a half, he hit every backhand he hit was a slice backhand. He doesn't normally do that. Obviously, he does hit the slice occasionally, but normally he's got a double hander there, which he would hit. And Lajovic took full advantage of that because these courts are quite bouncy. I think it's Chengdu, isn't it? They were playing at.
Yeah.
So he was using the kick serve, which, Lajovic's got a good kick serve, slight altitude. He was able to do that because there was nothing else that Bergs could do because he obviously got some sort of wrist or arm injury. I don't know. We'll probably find out in the next few days, but if you've only got a slice backhand and Lajovic is just going to play on that all day long, that's a lucky as well. The other one, again, I would have that bet again. It was because conditions, as we'll talk about in a minute, are quicker in Zhuhai this year than they were before. I would certainly be happy to take the price that I took on a set one tiebreak between Harris and Vesely. There wasn't a sniff of a break point for about 7 games. Then Vesely put in a bad one, and that's it, game over. So I don't think any of those were poor bets. Occasionally, I do have a poor bet, and I'll say, maybe I shouldn't have put that one up. But I think those were all perfectly fine bets that just didn't come off.
I think the reason I mentioned at the beginning of the show there was just purely because we haven't been over to this part of the world for a few years now, and what we thought the conditions in 2019 may be a little bit different. We were a bit uncertain about the court speed. We're a little bit uncertain about the conditions. So I just wanted to just sort of. What you've answered my question there. You said you'd do exactly the same bet. I wondered if we may have got a different read on the conditions, or the read we've got is wrong, and the just results never went for us.
Yeah, as I said, I think they're all good value plays. At least 2 of them went pretty much odds on in play, but didn't come in. But that's the way it goes sometimes. But as far as the conditions are concerned, do you want me to talk about Zhuhai first?
Yeah, we're going to come on to Zhuhai first, and we'll come on to Chengdu in a minute. So just go through them.
Yeah, it does look quicker. Certainly quicker than 2019. I mentioned in the show the other day, it was super slow in 2019 in Zhuhai. It looks a lot quicker. I haven't had the data through yet because they've only played a few first round. Well, they played the first round, but the data from that hasn't come through yet. I'll probably get that tomorrow. But to me, it looks quicker. That centre court in Zhuhai, it's always looked like an indoor court. If people are just casually watching this, they would probably think they're playing indoors because it does have that sort of feel to it. There's just it's very enclosed. There's just like a top bit where the roof is that they open, which makes it outdoors. But there's very little wind in there, hardly a breath of wind. Andy Murray said he was really struggling to breathe because it is super humid, which I'm going to talk about in a minute, the weather conditions there. So very little wind, should favour the attacking player. Looks quicker to me, certainly. Than it did in 2019. Looks like he can hit winners on it this time, which you really couldn't in 2019. Happy for my outright pick, Nishioka, that it is quicker. He would certainly prefer it quicker. That was my one concern about Nishioka, was that if it's as slow as it was before, that would be a worry, but seems to me to be a lot quicker. But the big problem that the players are having is the conditions. Just the humidity, the real feel, which is what the weather guys put up to include the humidity as well, is tomorrow, by the way, is going to be 100 Fahrenheit, 37, 38 C. So that's incredibly hot. We've already seen players struggling with it. We saw Diego Schwartzman retire today. Presumably that was heat related. Echeverry was quite unwell as well. He was he was doing something peculiar with a bin at one stage. He was, I don't know whether he was trying to be sick or trying to get something up or something. It was most peculiar spectacle. He had to have some pills and stuff. Play has been stopped quite regularly, actually, because the players, they're just sweating so much that the court is getting wet and they're having to stop and change all their clothes. That's happened numerous times. Happened today with Luke Saville and Andy Murray. They're having to change their shoes. They're just dripping in sweat because it's so ridiculously humid. And that is obviously going to be a big factor as the week goes on.
Going to be a huge factor. There's only 16 players through to round 2. Nishiokai, our pick, the number 8 seed, is in action first up. We're going to talk about his match straight away, but with the conditions, you look at some of these players here, the hot conditions, I wouldn't fancy Andy Murray at his age in the hot conditions. I probably wouldn't fancy Sebastian Korda, given his fitness problems. There's a lot of players at the top end of the market that you could actually put question marks or to potentially put a line through, isn't there?
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the reasons why I went for Nishioka, because he's always really motivated this time of year. He's shown it many, many times. And, just looking at the draw here, we're guessing a bit, obviously, but there are some that you could think, well, these guys had a long week in Davis week. They've had in Davis Cup, and they've had to travel over here to China, which obviously is a long journey. This is a 250, it's not the most exciting of events for someone like an Andy Murray, some of the top seeds. Some of these are here just to get acclimatized to the Asian swing. That's how it always is. They're not necessarily going to go all out to win this tournament, but yeah, you're right. There's motivation is a big factor.
Yeah, huge question marks about people. Kachanov as well. Kachanov, Korda, Murray are top 3 in the betting. I've big question marks about those. You said when we spoke on Tuesday that these tournaments had a big record of underdog wins. Is that sort of sustained over the opening round here? Have we got a fair share of underdogs, or has that sort of gone back towards the favourites over round 1?
Yeah, there wasn't much in Chengdu. Certainly not much that we could have done because the qualifiers hadn't been placed in the draw at the time we did the show. There's a couple of qualifiers that did win in Chengdu, but it's certainly not been up to the sort of 48% mark yet that it has been in previous years. So the quick answer to that is no, not yet. And if there aren't too many underdog winners, then I'm going to be struggling, and that's obviously the case at the minute.
Well, it's only round 1. We're into round 2 now. We've got more content coming tomorrow as well. We've got a podcast tomorrow, so we're looking at round 3 as well, quarterfinals. So don't worry too much about that. It's been a bit of a disappointing start, but if you were playing in play, a lot of people do play in play, you had a great opportunity and a good bet. You're betting someone at plus 160, trades plus minus 110, just doesn't win the big points. It's nothing, we're on the right side all the time here. So not really too much to worry about from my point of view. Anyway, we're going to Zhuhai now. We've got 3 matches. The first match we're going to talk about is your pick, Nishiokai, number 8 seed up against Lloyd Harris. Now, Nishiokai is an Asian player playing in Asia. You mentioned the hot, humid conditions. And he's up against Lloyd Harris here. Now, Lloyd Harris is way, way, way below him in the rankings. I know he's a big server and the conditions may suit him as well, but I don't see any reason why he should be a minus 150 favourite, Nishiokai at plus 120. Perhaps the only reason is because of the head-to-head is 2-0 in favour of Harris. They went in 2022 in Miami. Harris won in a very close match, 7-6, 4-6, 7-5, and he also won in Cincinnati in round 1, 6-3, 6-4 in rather quick-ish conditions. If you look at the spread, it's 1.5. Nishiokai receiving 1.5 is minus 109. Lloyd Harris is still the favourite, giving up 1.5, minus 117. And the total here is 22.5. Now, I know we've got a position on Nishiokai, and I don't really like betting somebody that we want to win the tournament unless there's an opportunity arises where it's huge value. And I'm looking at this price here, and given the conditions, given what you're saying about the court and the way that the temperature is there, I'm quite tempted by Nishiokai at plus 120.
Yeah, I think if you're not on the outright, I don't see any reason to not back him in this particular matchup. As I said, as you said, the head-to-head is 2-0 to Harris, but it doesn't tell the whole story of the matchup. Nishioka had an injured wrist in their first meeting, so that's kind of put a line through that. And in the second meeting, Nishioka won more points overall in the match, faced only 1 break point in that match. Unfortunately, it was match point, and he lost it. That was the only break point he faced in the entire match. Nishioka won 15% more second serve points in that match. He won 4% more first serve points in that match. 6 more points overall, but he lost because he lost it in right at the death. You know, it was that would what we call an unfortunate loss. All the statistics were in his favor. 1 more points, just didn't get the final point, which is what he needed. So I'm not too worried about the head-to-head. You know, Nishioka, I am sometimes concerned about Nishioka because against the really big servers, he doesn't really like it. This isn't an ideal matchup for him. But from Harris's point of view, he's going to have to serve fabulously well to beat a motivated Nishioka. This is Nishioka playing in Asia. He's a different animal to the Nishioka that's played in Cincinnati and Miami and these other tournaments. This is his time of year. From Harris's point of view, he served really, really well against Vesely in a match that we had a set 1 overs. As I said, we were unlucky with that because Harris won 92% of his first serve points and hit 19 aces in 12 service games. And Vesely in the first set was up at about 85% first serve points won. So really, that should have gone to a tiebreak, but Vesely put in a bad one, which was annoying for us. But it does tell me that this surface is quicker. If you're winning 92% of your first serve points, this isn't a slow surface, is it? So the surface to me looks like one that you can get your rewards with a big serve, big first strike. But I think Nishioka's got an excellent chance. As I say, the head-to-head is not overwhelming at all. I think Nishi will be the one that's willing to go the extra mile if it does get so physically demanding. Is Harris willing to go that far? Is he capable of going that far after all the injury problems that he's had? Nishioka's certainly got a decent chance of winning this. I mean, as I said, I'm already on him, so I'm not going to go in again. But if you're not on him, I wouldn't put anybody off back in Nishioka. This is a very winnable match for him.
So if you haven't taken our advice on betting Nishioka at, I think it was 20-1, wasn't he? Each way to win the tournament?
Yeah, 20-1.
20-1 to win the tournament. We think that the plus 120 here is a little bit of value up against Lloyd Harris. Home conditions, sweltering hot day. Nishioka will definitely be buoyed on by the crowd as well. The first time the tour has returned to China since 2019, and an Asian player as well is going to get a huge amount of support. So plus 120 Nishioka. If you haven't taken the 20-1, we would suggest a little player, but if you have, let's just ride that 20-1 outright pick. Now, about 15-20 minutes ago, our graphic man, John, sent me some graphics through, and it said Jean-Leonard Struff minus 136. Took it off of the BetRivers website. Christian Garin plus 110. I've just checked the BetRivers website 20 minutes later. There has been a huge move for Christian Garin. Jean-Leonard Struff now is minus 114, and Christian Garin has gone from plus 110 to minus 108. That's a substantial move for the Chilean. The spread here is 2.5. Garin plus 2.5 is now a very, very heavy favourite, minus 182. Struff giving up 2.5 is plus 138. And the total here is 22.5. Now, the total does interest me a little bit because the last time they met was in 2019 in the Davis Cup, and the match ended 6-7, 7-6, 7-6, the maximum 39 games. And when you consider that you say it's going to be quite a fast call, 22.5 over minus 118, I quite like that little wager.
Yeah, I wouldn't put anybody off that. This is news to me that you've talked about this market move for Garin. This could be people having seen Struff maybe have an injury or something like that, because he is rusty, Struff. He's only played UTS tennis, the exhibition event at home in Frankfurt last week. That's the only tennis he's played since getting a hip injury back in June. So he's understandably likely to be rusty. As you said, Garin won their only prior encounter. As you said, 3 tie breaks. I saw Garin today. I mean, he wasn't great, Garin. I mean, he played against, I think it was the world number 903 today. Struggled, lost the first set. He was okay after that. The Garin forehand, it's not looking dependable these days. There's a lot of errors coming from that side from Christian Garin when he's been under pressure in recent times, like sort of this season, really. Took a look at their records in Asia. Garin, it's 3 wins, 4 losses on the Asian swing, but he has played a lot of very good players. The average rank of opposition in those matches is number 38, and he was the betting underdog in all bar one of those 7 matches. So he's not had the best of draws so far in the Asian swing. So you can't say that, you know, he doesn't perform well this time of year. He's had some very, very tough matches. Struff's got a very, very similar record on the Asian swing, 4-6 win-loss, but he was betting underdog in 8 of those 10 matches. So they've both had tricky draws. in almost all their matches that they've played on the Asian swing. And another interesting stat for Struff in this leg of the tour, all bar one of the 9 completed matches he's played on this Asian swing have gone over 22 and a half games, which brings in what you were saying. And 6 of the last 7 have featured a tiebreak. So with all that in mind, what I've got written down here is my lean is over 10 and a half games. I haven't seen the price for that. It should be around about the sort of 2-1 mark. I'm sure you can probably tell me roughly what that would be, set one overs. But that
over 10.5 games is plus 210. So bigger than 2.5. Bigger than 2-1, sorry.
Okay. So yeah, my estimate was almost right, just slightly less there. But yeah, that's what I would probably go for, because as I say, Struff's rusty. Garin didn't look great today, but I think they will have that advantage of having that one match. Struff really is like in match practice. So that would be my lean in that one. Not going to have a bet in it, but set one over 10.5 games. That looks decent value. Similar bet to what you've mentioned.
Yeah, I think the games angle is definitely the way to go. If you want to play the total games, you do so. If you want to play the first set, whichever way you want to do it. Remember, these matches are very early. Tomorrow, 1 a.m. Eastern time. So these are very, very early matches. Nishiokai against Harris kicks off proceedings, and then Garin Struff follows around about 2:30 a.m. on Friday. So these are early starts. There's 28 different markets on both of those matches. Sean has picked the prop there. You can click on the link on the Bet Rivers website, takes you all to different props, and you'll see more markets on an ATP Tour 250 than you will find in any other sportsbook across America. So Christian Garin, Leonard Struff, we are looking at games. The next match we're going to talk about, again, a little bit movement in the price. Well, not so much as the Struff v Garin match, but there is a slight movement from what we got given earlier. We got given Khachanov at minus 385. He's now minus 345. There has been a little bit of money for Alex Bolt, who was plus 290, who's now plus 265. Bolt has come through qualifying here. He beat Diego Schwartzman, who, as you said, had to retire. And Khachanov hasn't played since the US Open. Prior to that, I didn't play since the quarterfinal of the French Open. So he's very, very rusty. We don't know what to expect from Khachanov. He's one of the market leaders to win the tournament. He's the number 1 seed. Don't let the ranking of Alex Bolt in the 300s put you off. He's a capable opponent here. And Khachanov here is not seeing the money. The money is coming for the Australian.
I mean, this one, as you alluded to there, is really all about how prepared Karen Khachanov is for this match. He certainly wasn't prepared fully for the US Open, which was his comeback match. He's had, I think it's a stress fracture in the back that he's actually had. So quite a nasty injury. He's been out for some considerable time. Khachanov. I thought it was interesting what he said after that US Open comeback loss to Michael Mmoh. He said, and I quote, "I know I'm not even close to my best physical shape and game right now, which I had prior to the injury, and it will take some time for me to get back there." And that was on September the 4th. So 2.5 weeks ago, he's saying, I'm not even close to my best shape, and it's going to take me some time to get back into the swing of things. And only 2.5 weeks ago. Is he better prepared now? Well, maybe not. And that's what this one's all about, really. We don't know. We are guessing on Khachanov's fitness, and at these prices there'll be people that are prepared to guess that he's still not prepared. He does have a very good record against left-handers, Karen Khachanov, due to mainly the fact that he's got a really solid backhand. He's won 13 of his last 17 matches at main level on all hard courts against left-handers. So no real weakness there at all against lefties. But for me, Bolt's, he's going to be buzzing for this, really. Lots of Australians have gone well so far in Zhuhai. I think all the 4 qualifiers that came through were all Australians. So there's a real camaraderie thing going on there. And he says he's finally feeling better now, because he's had an awful lot of injury problems as well in the last sort of year or so. Bolt, he's very rarely been fit. It's really been a kind of long struggle for him. That's why his ranking's down as low as it is. He's better than that. Took a look at his record against top 20 opponents. He's 0-6, but he's given them a good match most of the time. Took Dominic Thiem to 5 sets at the Australian Open when Thiem was, really at his best. Almost beat Stan Wawrinka at the 250, also in Melbourne on home soil for him. And he's played a tiebreak in all of his last 4 matches that he's played against top 20 players. So all things considered, I think you'd be taking a big old risk if you're backing Khachanov at these odds. That's probably why his price has eased a little bit. My lean here would be either over the games or possibly set 1 to Bolt. I think those are the sort of 2 angles that I'd be coming at this one from. Because Bolt's obviously had that match, several matches through qualies under his belt. He'll be buzzing, as I said, with all the Australians coming through. So definitely move back in Kashana for that price.
Over total games, minus 118 over 21, but you can move the little widget, the toggle, up 22.5 games. You want to bet over is plus 115. 23 games you want to play is plus 140. So you can go up there. And if you want to bet Bolt to win the first set, plus 190 is what you will get with Bet Rivers. And that is the tournament in Zhuhai. That's the tournament in Zhuhai. The 3 matches there we have gone through for you. We're going to move now across to in China, still staying in China. Chengdu is the tournament we have in China. 2 tournaments. It's 2 ATP Tour 250 events. Chengdu. Now, Sean, we gave the outright pick of Nishiokai, and you said to us when we come back on Thursday, you may have looked at a little bit of an angle. You like that bottom quarter, and you thought there may be some potential of a decent wager. I'm going to give you some outright prices now from Bet Rivers on Chengdu. Alexander Zverev is still the market leader. He's 2-1. Gregor Dimitrov is 6-1. Dan Evans is 8-1. Roman Safalin is also 8-1. Lorenzo Musetti 9. Jordan Thompson 11. Kekmanovic 16. Christopher O'Connell 20. Zuzan Lajovic 22. And Artur Rindenik is 22-1. Any of those 10 players caught your fancy on the outright market?
Well, I mentioned the other day that the only one I'd be interested in, kind of tentatively, was Rinderknecht, who's 33-1, I think, at the start of the tournament. Given that he's the outsider of the lot at 22, I think potentially that's the only value. It's not quite strong enough for me to kind of press the button and make it an official play, but my thoughts haven't really changed as far as that's concerned. I mean, Rinderknecht was a little bit lucky, or quite lucky, you might say, that Ruusuvuori, his first round opponent, had to pull out sick. So that's a bonus for him, and also a bonus potentially could be the fact that he now won't have to play Bublik either, having Bublik lost to Gear on. So if you did take the 33-1, I think that's probably the decent value that there was. He's my only real kind of idea of this. I haven't got any other fancies. He's the only one that I'm really sort of looking at, really.
Artur Rindenik is now 22-1. He was helped. His opponent was a decent opponent from round 1 who pulled out injured.
Ruusuvuori, yeah.
Ruusuvuori. So, yeah, he was helped by the draw, and the draw may have opened up in that 4th quarter. He's currently 22-1 with Bet Rivers. So, no official pick on the outright market in Chengdu, but that will be the lean Artur Rindenik at 22-1. Whether you want to follow it or not is entirely up to you. Now, we do have 3 matches that we're going to talk about here. The first match we're going to talk about is Roman Safalin up against Dan Evans. Now, Dan Evans must be absolutely done in, exhausted. If you saw his heroics in the Davis Cup last week when he came in a fiery match against Artur Fils in the singles, and then he went completely come back from 4 match points in the doubles. So how he must be traveling back from the UK across to China is a big ask for him here. But he's up against Roman Safalin, and he's just the underdog here at even money. And probably the reason why is because of that exertions he had. They have met once before in 2019, a challenger event, which Dan Evans won. The market is pretty solid here. No one's really getting much attention. It's some money for Dan Evans, some money for Safalin. Not really. No one's really pinning their mask to one particular player here. Do you want to take an opinion on this match, Sean?
Yeah, my lean would be Safalin. If we look at the stats, 2023 at main level, away from clay, service points won, return points won, totals dead level, both on 101. Slight advantage to Safalin on the service hold and break totals, 100 to 99, so 1 point advantage there for Safalin. Safalin has shown his best form on quicker surfaces throughout his career, so the conditions I feel will be helpful for him here. And Dan Evans doesn't have a particularly great record on the Asian swing. He's 3-4 win-loss. He's never got past round 2 in any of the 4 tournaments that he's played so far on the Asian swing. As you said, he had a demanding time at Davis Cup. The head-to-head, they played once back in 2019 when both of them were much lower ranked. It was a very, very tight match, ended in a final set tiebreak. That was at the Quimper Challenger 2019. Safalin won more points in the match that day and lost. He actually won 14% more second serve points that day. Safalin just didn't get over the line. Consider himself unlucky there, but it was 4 years ago. I feel like this is one that Safalin has a real good chance of winning. I'm not I'm just not massively wild about the price. What is it, minus 111?
Minus 124 now.
Is it? Well, I'm definitely not wild about it on that then. Yeah, it's a lean for Safalin, but I wouldn't take him at minus 124, that's for sure. Plus money, I'd take him if he drifts out or in play. Plus money would be certainly a prop that I wouldn't mind for Safalin, but perhaps not at that price.
I think the market's going to be anti-Evans, isn't it? Because of the exertions he went through last week. So the hope of it bouncing out, I think, is going to be quite slim here. If you want to look at the spread, it's minus 1.5. Safalin giving up minus 1.5 is plus 104. Evans plus 1.5, minus 132, and the total is 22.5. But Dan Evans must be absolutely spent. He must be exhausted. And Safalin, he did open up at minus 110, now minus 124. We do believe that he will win the match, but at minus 124, we're keeping our money firmly in our pocket. The next match we're going to talk about is Zhuhai and Lajovic up against Jordan Thompson. Now, Lajovic obviously cost us last time out in his win over. I've lost my mind's gone blank. Who was he?
Zhu
Bergs. Yeah. Long match though. Long match for Lajovic. We know he's come towards the end of his career. He's slightly higher in the rankings than Jordan Thompson, but you wouldn't think so if you look at the betting here. Jordan Thompson is a very heavy favourite. Bet Rivers minus 210. Lajovic is plus 165. The spread is 2.5. Thompson giving up 2.5 minus 132. Lajovic plus 2.5 plus 102. And the total is 22.5. Amazingly, these two have never met before. When you consider how long around they've been on the circuit for, you would have thought they passed with a cross, but it hasn't. You would expect Jordan Thompson to win this, really, but we speak about Lajovic and the conditions maybe even a little bit. Is it slow? We didn't mention the conditions there, but I would expect Thompson's to win this. But minus 210, I can't see any value in that. But before you answer that question, Sean, you might as well just give us a recap on the conditions here.
Yeah, as I say, I'm waiting for the stats to come through, but from my own viewing of this tournament so far, the matches that I've seen so far, it looks bouncier than it used to. It used to be quite low bouncing. The ball used to kind of skid through a bit. Looks a lot bouncier than that now. The balls do fly at the 500 meters of altitude. That's always been the same. Been a bit cloudy this week, so perhaps not as quick as it was before. It doesn't look quite as quick to me. That may be because it's a bit humid, not much sunshine. That could certainly be the case. Going to continue to be cloudy tomorrow when these matches are played. A real feel of about 23. And if you could compare that with Zhuhai 38, it's relatively cool, isn't it? So conditions, I wouldn't describe them as really quick. It looks kind of medium to me. As I say, I'm waiting for the data to come through from round one matches, but it doesn't look lightning quick. I'd say just sort of medium with the balls flying a bit with the altitude. But just looking at this match that we're talking about here, Jordan Thompson and Lajovic, as I said earlier, we're unlucky with Bergs against Lajovic with that injury that Bergs picked up. The betting was suspended, actually. I was watching this, and the betting was suspended towards the end of that second set. But I think the layers were a bit worried that Lajovic was going to retire because he looked. You saw the match, didn't you? He looked like he was kind of teetering on the edge of I don't really fancy this. And the odds were suspended for quite some time.
And when they come back, Bergs was heavy favourite.
Yeah, and whatever injury he picked up, be it a wrist, an arm injury, I think Lajovic was certainly fortunate to get through that one. Bergs, I think he won one more point overall in the match. Bergs won 85% of his first serve points, so a little bit of a fortunate victory for Lajovic. I talked about Lajovic's weak record at this stage of the season the other day. Thompson is a much more of a sort of regular visitor to this part of the world. He plays a lot of his tennis here in challenges just to kind of keep his ranking up. It's a tactic he's used throughout his career. He's played 82 matches here at all levels, Jordan Thompson, winning 66% of them, although most of them, the vast majority, were at challenges. In fact, only 5 of those matches have been played at main level. So it plays a lot of challenges here. So we'll be used to the conditions, although it's certainly not hot enough to be a major problem. I took a look at the outdoor hardcourt main level stats of this pair, compared them since the start of 2022, because Lajovic hasn't played that many matches in the past year, so I went back slightly further. Thompson, not fabulous stats, 42% win rate and a service points won, return points won total of 99. Lajovic, as you would expect, not great either, 36% win rate and his total is 96. So you can see why Thompson's favourite. I think he's a bit too much of a favourite for me. I wouldn't be wildly keen on backing Jordan Thompson at that sort of price. I think he'll probably win it, but I looked at another sort of a set of data, and when Thompson's been priced up between 1.4 and 1.59, which is minus 250 to minus 169 in that sort of price range at main level, he's actually got a really good record: 27 wins and 9 losses in that price range. He's won 11 of his last 13 in that price range, and he would have covered a 3.5 game handicap 9 times in those 13 matches. So surprisingly for me, he's been a very reliable favourite when he's been priced up in that range. So given everything we know about Liveich and his lack of motivation and sort of lack of suitability to the quick courts this time of year, my lean in this one would be Thompson minus 3.5 games. I think you can get plus money on that, can't you?
I'll find out for you. Well, the line is 2.5 is minus 132, and if you use the little toggle, which I will do in 1 second, it's the one I can't find. 4.5 you can bet minus 188.
It was
2.5 minus 132. It will be plus money. Probably be about plus 110. So
it was something like that. Yeah,
that would Thompson be, minus 3.5.
Yeah, that would be my sort of lean on that one. It does worry me. I never really like those sort of bets, but I know a lot of people do. So Thompson minus 3.5 in that one if I was having a bet.
Yeah, Thompson minus. So we haven't got an official pick as yet. Hopefully we have one.
We've got one coming. Yeah, don't worry.
We've got the last match. You leave the best to last. And I think I know where you're going to go here. The last game we're going to talk about is Christopher O'Connell up against Taro Daniel. Obviously, Taro Daniel is obviously an Asian player playing in China again, going to get the big support. And we said on the podcast on Tuesday that the Asian players do really raise their game when they're playing in front of their home crowds. They have excellent records in Asia. And the tour doesn't go there a lot and hasn't been there in China since 2019. So motivation is huge for the Asian players. And Taro Daniel here is minus 105 against Christopher O'Connell at minus 118. Now, you might think this is a bet. The price sort of replicates that when you look at the ranking. Christopher O'Connell's 53 in the world and Taro Daniel's 95. But the record on hard court this year, Taro Daniel has a better hard court record. And when you look at the head-to-head, they played in 2023 in the French Open, and Taro Daniel absolutely obliterated O'Connell 6-love, 6-2, 6-4. I actually went to round 2 where Taro Daniel took a set of Carlos Alcaraz, the first set on the Philippe Chatrier court at the French Open. I'm quite surprised that Taro Daniel is minus 105 here. He's definitely a player that I would like to bet in this match. I'm hoping and I'm praying that you're in agreement with me.
You're hoping and praying. Your prayers have been answered. Yeah, I like Taro Daniel. I was happy to take him on the other day. I thought he was short against Vukic. As I said, Vukic couldn't keep his main level up for long enough. And if you can't do that against Taro Daniel, he will grind you down eventually. And that's kind of what happened to Vukic, unfortunately. The match that you mentioned, it's a difficult one to kind of have any bearing on, really, because O'Connell was injured in that French Open match. For me, it's fairly clear that he just played on because he didn't want to risk his round 1 money by retiring, because the rule that's been in force for about 5 years now. If you do retire in that sort of round 1 match, that there is a possibility that you can get some of your salary, your purse, whatever you want to call it, withheld. So what you're seeing now, in the old days, you used to see players retiring after about 1 set because they knew they were going to get their money. Now what you're seeing is players that are going the full 3 sets, but with having absolutely no chance of winning. That was the case with O'Connell. He was clearly injured, so it's the 1-0 isn't overly relevant. But the outdoor hardcourt stats, as you mentioned, they are relevant, because in 2023 at main level on outdoor hard, Daniel has a 53% win rate and a service points won, return points won total of 99. O'Connell 36% win rate and a total of 95. So some advantage there for Daniel. Going slightly further, service, hold and break totals, Taro Daniel 98, O'Connell 92. So an even bigger advantage there for Taro Daniel. He hasn't been brilliant on this Asian swing over the years. He's won 5 matches and lost 9. Only been past the second round twice. I think with him, it's been a nervy thing. He has struggled a little bit with the nerves at this part of the tour, but he's got that 1 match under his belt now. O'Connell's only played 1 match prior to this week on the Asian tour, which was a retirement in Seoul last year, so he certainly hasn't got any pedigree at this stage of the season. He certainly wasn't impressive in round one against the qualifier, Alibek Kachmazov, who didn't give himself any chance really. Served at only 50%, hit 6 double faults, and he still had chances in both sets to catch Kachmazov. It wasn't impressive at all from O'Connell, far from it. So I think this is the other way around to the match that I was talking about the other day. I didn't fancy Daniel at the price he was. Now I think he's value. He's also had an extra day to recover from that round one match. O'Connell's got to play back-to-back days, whereas Daniel doesn't. And you would assume that Daniel is the more motivated. I took him at even money earlier on. I'm not sure what that line has moved slightly, but I think these odds are, again, slightly the wrong way around.
Minus 105 currently, so not really much movement in there. I suppose O'Connell won a challenger in Shanghai in the middle of last week, 12th. Yeah, so he won a challenger event last week in Shanghai. That he's obviously got some form under his belt there, but the caliber opposition wasn't much at all in that tournament. So that might be the reason why he is that. But I think Tara Daniel at minus 105, even though if you took the even money, great, but the minus 105 still represents some value as far as I am concerned as well. So they are the bets. They are the tournaments over in China. We have Chengdu and we have Zhuhai, and just the one official pick, and it's Tara Daniel. So win his match against Christopher O'Connell at minus 105. We have leans for Nishiokai as well, another Asian player in Zhuhai, but he's our pick as well at 20-1. So hopefully you're on that already. You don't need to bet him again at plus 120. Sean, I've got a question for you before we go. Our last video, I've got a question for you. It's from GTNAWAB123. So I don't know how you pronounce that. Jutnawab123. It says, I love your show. Thank you very much. Gentlemen, just 2 questions. How do you choose a handful of matches to wager, mainly in the first and second round? So how do you go about choosing? When you look at a Grand Slam, you see 64 different matches. How do you go about just picking 2 rather than picking 22?
You're talking about Grand Slams or just any?
Well, I think it's just asking generally. We've spoken about 3 matches here. We've spoken about, sometimes we do the show, we speak about 2 matches. What's your process for eliminating the others?
I think it's a lot easier in these tournaments because we've only got 4 matches in each tournament on Friday. So that's easy. The hard part is what you've sort of mentioned there about the Grand Slams. You got 64 matches. I think it's just I just look at all the prices, and then I make an early sort of note of one that I'd like to explore further, or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, however many it is, could be up to 10 that I'd like to explore further just based on my first feel of the prices. I'll just think, well, hang on, that doesn't seem quite right. Then I'll delve further into it, and I might dismiss that bet for any number of reasons, statistical or whatever. Maybe if it has a poor record against left-handers or something like that, that might dismiss it, and I'll chalk that one off. And eventually I'll come down to about sort of 4 or 5. Does that answer the question? Yeah,
I think also as well, you're always drawn to the matches that are around about 50-50, aren't you? Like 40-60, and thinking that I can bet a guy here at plus 110 who I should make minus 110.
Yeah.
You don't even look at the matches where they're minus 2,000. You're not even interested in the ones where they're minus 600, minus 700.
Yeah, those are kind of easy to dismiss unless you really feel like, for example, Djokovic against Zapata Morales that was on quite recently. I really felt like Djokovic could cover a big handicap against him. But that wouldn't be my ideal bet. I would generally find in the first round of a major something that I like a bit more. It's just a feel. It's just an instinct that price doesn't seem right, and then you look into it further, and then you either decide to go with it or you don't.
And also, there's a second question for you. Also, why would you prefer a tiebreak in set 1, a bet that we regularly give on here, versus in any other set in the match?
It depends on the circumstances. It could be a player kind of coming back from injury, a little bit rusty, like we mentioned with the Struff situation. It could be 2 players that have never met before. If they've never met before, both of them have got big serves, it generally takes a little while for a player to get a read on a bigger serve. So that's generally one reason why I would go for a set 1 tiebreak. The other reason is that sometimes, like for example, a Vesely match against Harris, first round, first tournament, first time these guys had seen this court and these conditions for 4 years. And And it proved to be the case, actually, didn't it? This is quite a good example, actually, because had Vesely not had that one bad service game, that probably would have gone to a first set tie. But by the second set, Vesely, who, God bless him, isn't the fittest specimen in the world, he had enough, hadn't he? In that 37-degree real feel, he was not having that. So the second set, there's that sort of fatigue element that you have to kind of take into account as well. So there's the kind of unfamiliarity with each other's game, which would lead to perhaps fewer break opportunities, more holds, and the sort of fatigue element as well. There's quite a few elements to think about with that.
I think with the first set as well, statistically, there's more games in the first set than set two, especially in best of 3 sets matches, only marginal. And also there is that the player jacking it in mentality. I've lost
like Vesely.
Yeah, like that happens a lot. Yeah. So if you got the nice read on the first one, and that's why overtotal games are dangerous, because you can get the tiebreak at 7. You can get the tiebreak at 7-6 in the first set. In the second set, the guy could lose 6-1. So,
as Vesely did. Yeah, it's a good example.
Exactly. So it's one of those occasions as well. So hopefully that answered your questions. If you have any more questions for Sean or myself, just feel free to mention them at the bottom of the comments on this section, and I'll read them out. And we're back again tomorrow, so I'll read them out on tomorrow's show. It's a bit strange this next month because of the Asian swing. So Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays will be coming to you with our best bets for the tournaments over in Asia. We're back in Europe in a month's time. We're back to normal ways then. So a little bit strange now. Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays. You can remember you can follow all the content by downloading the podcast Betting Weekly Game Bet Match on your preferred podcast provider. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel, the Betting Weekly Studios. I said Bet Rivers Network, the Betting Weekly Studios, where you can follow all the content not only on the tennis, but also on the soccer as well. The Champions League is reaching its start of the tournament, and a great week on the Champions League. The Premier League is back this week, so a lot of great content on there. And also you can follow us on our socials, on our joint handle on Twitter, and also on Instagram at Because We Win. You better follow the fantastic content on there. So that's it. That's it for today, Thursday. Good luck with your bets, Sean. Good luck to everyone for following. And we'll be back again on Friday. Take care, and we'll speak to you all then.